The other side of it is tax-free, right? That money that you loan to yourself comes out, it's tax-free because it's a loan, you borrowed it. And here's the really cool part. We call this arbitrage. The money sitting in your account, your principal, you didn't take a distribution, you took a loan from department 2. So your $500,000 is over here growing at, let's call it 7%. Yeah. So that grows at 7, you borrow at 3.5, that's a net. If my math is right, that's a net 3.5.
Right.
So you'd make an arbitrage. And you can then pay it back, use it again. And I love how you, the idea is it's a self-completing retirement plan also.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. So I have Andre Simoneau here with me, and that's the only time you're going to hear me say his last name, guys. I'm going to say it once, and that's it. Andre Simoneau, Simoneau. He is actually an insurance and annuity broker. Now, the thing is, I was working with him with a client of mine, and he stood out to me for 2 primary reasons, guys. One, he really knows his SHIT, which I'm not allowed to say, but he really knows his stuff. That was one. And 2, he really stayed inside of his integrity and the consistency of what he was teaching while we were working with this client. That stood out to me as something I feel like you guys need to know, because I have a great belief in real estate, but I perceive myself as an investor. I invest in small businesses. I've invested in gold. I've invested in oil. I've invested in life insurance, and my primary investments have always been in real estate. But I am an investor, and there are multiple investment vehicles. And if you don't know that life insurance is a good investment vehicle, then you need to listen, because that's what Andre is going to teach you. So let me read you a little bit of his bio, and then I can welcome him here to the show. So I'm going to share a screen for those of you who can see this on YouTube, Amazon. We're going to be on Amazon TV soon, by the way, guys. Roku TV, YouTube, Roku TV, and soon Amazon. All right, you can see Andre right here. Andre is made, life made to order. LMTO, life made to order. Financial is based on the belief that we all have the power to arrange our lives with an ideal experience, having it be an ideal experiences. My business partner, Mara, and I have experienced the benefits of a life made to order way of life, and love sharing how this philosophy applies to all areas of life, guys, especially our careers and personal finances. His passion involves teaching others to be successful in life, in business, and how to build their personal wealth and secure their future. Is that not somebody you want on your team, where their passion is to help you be successful, because they want to help you build your personal wealth and secure your future? As an executive vice president of 5 Rings Financial and partner at Life Made to Order Financial, he rolls 401ks and IRAs into guaranteed accounts that can never lose money due to stock market performance. Yes, he did say guaranteed accounts. Teach people how to grow money in a tax-free indexed account and access it tax-free. Instruct people how to set money aside for college, vacation, and practically almost anything that you are needing in your future. Set up living benefits that give you access to life insurance if you live through a terminal, critical, or chronic life event or illness. So I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to welcome Andre to the show. Andre, great to have you here.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate it. It's definitely been a path of learning to keep that presence and just ask my client, find out where they want to be and where they want to go in life. And then instead of attributing what my thought process is or what might be my life says, is find out what their path is and get on the highway with them, and then keep them on the straightaway highway. Keep them out of if we were on a bowling alley, it's keeping them out of the gutters. That's right. Put up the little things down the end, and we can, ball always goes down the middle.
Put up the guardrails. And I, as you know, you've been doing your research on me, which I appreciate. And I, as you know, have the exact same philosophy. Real estate portfolio can only be peaceful if it is the right portfolio for you, whether it is your current life situation, your future life situation, and how you want to live life while you're getting there. Your real estate portfolio can, and there's no reason why it shouldn't, be serving you in your life to help you do that. And if you start building your real estate portfolio with that assumption in mind first, you get a much higher quality of assets, portfolio, performance, satisfaction, and let's just say, I dare to hope, a better quality of life in general, right? And you come from the exact same philosophy.
I would say they all come together. I have this fun idea that we all grew up and were conditioned and programmed that you don't talk about money, you don't talk about sex, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about money, sex, religion, and politics. And whenever somebody does, right, you say one of them, and it's like this little cage floating in the air, and the arms, and there's legs coming out of it, and everybody's like, I don't want to talk about that. And yet, if we could diffuse that and realize that it's just a habit of conditioning or old programming, it's getting an opportunity to see the mirror of what's going on for me. And to your point, I have a client. He says, Andre, if I don't have $100,000 sitting in the checking account, I know it doesn't earn a penny, but if I don't have $100,000 sitting in that account, I just don't sleep well.
That's right.
And it's beautiful to find that and be willing to walk somebody down and have them fit in what all the pieces are that are out there and how to do it.
Yeah, because it is meant to serve you, and it's important in my conversations and in yours to do that. My husband's number is 300,000, by the way, just so you know. I'd have that conversation with my husband, right? Because I have my risk tolerance, but my partner, my husband, has his risk tolerance, and he is less. He's more risk averse. Let's put it that way. He's more risk averse than I am. I'm a little like, yeah, no, it's all good. I can, I'm flowing money here. I'm flowing money there. I'm an investor, right? This is what I do. I play with money, right? But he's a little like, no, 300,000's got to hold still. No, it's got to be right there where I see it. Right?
And the question might be is, okay, I have to have 300,000, and that means I can't lose it. It means it can't go backwards. And so we have this traditional thinking of like, it needs to be in a bank account, but what if that purpose was, I just can't lose that and I can access it any day? And what most people don't know today is that there's some instruments out there that you could actually deposit that 300,000 into, and you could make a phone call and you could get 90% of it tomorrow.
See, there you go. That's why you're here on the show, is to have that conversation with us. Yeah. So how'd you get into this, right? How'd you get into this whole like life insurance and annuities conversation and being an expert in this area?
Well, I remember when I was 8 years old, I went to school. It was like pick your career day. I caught up in front of the room and I said, hi, my name's Andre. I want to be a life insurance and annuity salesman when I grow up. Not. No. I'm just kidding. No, that doesn't happen. I don't know anybody that's in the business like that way.
No, my daughter wants to be an astronaut. She wants to do biology and be an astronaut. She wants to do biology in space.
That's fabulous. I remember when I was super young, like Legos, my dad was like, you should be an aerospace engineer, because I had tens of thousands of Legos. Yes. I went to college with the intention to build a bridge from Earth to the moon, right? So that was my path. Okay. And then somewhere I learned that the moon is not in geosynchronous orbit to the Earth, which means that won't work. And I was like, I guess I'm not going. No. I ended up in business for myself when I was 19. Okay. And figured out that I wanted to be my own boss, and did that learning, personal development, was in business, had some Verizon retail stores for 15 years on the East Coast. Got that to a point of success where moved from Maryland to Colorado, bought a piece of land, built what was my dream house on the top of a mountain. I could see the Breckenridge ski resort. I had 4 kids. I was like, I'm gonna retire here. Right. And then 2008 happens. And when the crash happened, I was out of business, $50,000 in debt, asking 2 questions. What am I going to do when I grow up? And a little bit mad, who didn't teach me about money? And I got a phone call and somebody said, hey, I went to this class about money. And I'm like, yes,
I need that.
Here's the learning number 1, right? Don't wait until everything's upside down to go get the learning, right? That was my first, okay. And that turned into wrapping my head back around money. Things like compound interest, non-taxable growth of money, the little differences that interest rates do make on your money. The arbitrage that exists in certain life insurance policies. And as I attended and I started to learn just to fix my money, in 18 months, I paid off my debt. By year 3, I was like, I'm not the only guy that's never learned this. And I decided I'm going to start teaching this. And I dove in and found myself taking the same ideology that I took for me, which was I just didn't know, and created this educational approach where I started teaching all around the United States, found Zoom just a couple years later and said, why aren't I doing business on Zoom? And created this agency that works anywhere in the US, and started leveraging the technology of Zoom. So that's the short story. Was I had a financial crisis in my life.
Okay.
And some of us humans, sometimes that I could take it to a relationship. When I got divorced, it wasn't until I got divorced with 4 kids that I was like, maybe I need to work on myself. And that was a good thing at the time. It was hard at the moment. It's looking back now, it's the greatest path. And it's helped me learn and be really self-reflective, and turning the mirror back on myself and asking, which is what I get to guide and talk with clients about.
Yeah, it's, I mean, because, well, see, problem is you and I could talk about that all day long. Literally, it took us 30 minutes, guys, to get this interview started, because we spent 30 minutes talking about that before we even talked about the interview. So we can talk about that all day long. And we both share in that philosophy, right? So being able to reflect to oneself is the greatest joy, or can bring the greatest joy in one's life. And it's not joy like, woohoo, I'm so excited. It's joy like satisfaction, peace of mind, serenity, knowing that you're on purpose and on course, even if the day is hard, knowing that it's worth living it because you choose it. You chose it, and it gives you the fulfillment of where you want to go. We could talk about that for forever. Let's talk about life insurance.
That's how I got into the business, right?
That's how you got into it. But how you got into the business was, yes, I need to know about finances. And you didn't just like say, hey, I need to know about finances. You went, I'm going to dive deep in knowing about finances. And where you live, the pool you landed in was life insurance and annuities. Because you could have landed in stocks. You could have landed, right? You could have landed in real estate. Right? There's lots of things you could have landed in if your purpose was to learn about money and the nature of money. But you landed in annuities and life insurance. Now, you know this part of my story, but I'm going to share it here, which is I have a life insurance policy on myself. I call it my idiot policy. And the reason why I call it the idiot policy is in case I'm an idiot and I totally mess it up in my life, which is possible because the world happens and I do my best, but sometimes there are mistakes. Mine, others, just the coincidence of COVID, right? The Great Recession, 2008, the Depression, right? In 1939, this life happens, and it doesn't always happen based on my time schedule and my timeline. So I have this idiot policy, and basically it means that I'm going to be able to leave my daughter money, period. I pay into it, but I was able to get a larger policy than maybe somebody else might have chosen because I understood it was an investment vehicle. It wasn't a policy to pay my death, on my death, how do you bury your mom, right? It was meant to be a policy to both fund my daughter, but also work for me during my lifetime. So I got a larger policy because I knew and understood it was an investment vehicle I could do arbitrage on. We found a life insurance company that allows me to actually loan against my whole life insurance. I pay an interest rate that's less than what I can make inside my real estate investing. So I was able to put more money, park more money working over here, and then be able to take a loan against it. So all that money isn't sitting just in the policy. I'm actually now reusing the money for being able to invest in real estate. I literally own a house in Indianapolis that I bought with the loan against my life insurance policy.
Beautiful.
So there you go, right? So actual at work, real life. So walk us down that path. Why is life insurance not just something that, hey, it's something nice to leave for my kids? Why is it an investment vehicle?
Great. There's a little known tax code that existed, and I won't bore you with the detail, but this tax code basically said this. The wealthy went to the IRS and the government and said, we want to build this account. We want to put money inside of it. It goes off of the books when it goes inside of it. And the IRS and the government said, you must own a life insurance umbrella. And so what happens is that when money goes to the life insurance company, it's going in as premium. And then the life insurance company deposits it into an account that now grows. Now, yes, part of that money you're paying for life insurance. So the first caveat is you got to own some life insurance in order for this to work, in order to borrow from it, and most importantly, to keep it tax free.
Right.
So the
I
example
like the
would be,
tax-free part because my daughter gets the whole thing when I die.
yes.
Period.
So
Right?
because it's life insurance, and now you have, let's call it $1 million umbrella of life insurance, it is permanent, which is why we use a whole life policy. Since then, we had a universal policy, which is a fixed interest rate. And over the last 15 years, we have an index policy. Now you can get returns like the stock market, not as much, but you can get index growth.
Okay.
Life insurance company says, thank you for the umbrella. And then when you give them money, part of it pays for the death benefit. The rest of that money goes into an account. I call it the indexed account because the money's growing index. A whole life policy would do just a fixed interest rate or would pay a dividend.
Okay.
And then here's the really amazing part. There happens to be a tax code in the United States that says when you take a loan, that's not considered income.
Okay.
So I've got Department 1 that's got the holding my money with the umbrella of life insurance. And then Department 2 says, Christina, how much would you like to borrow? So you've got, say, $1 million life insurance policy, say you got $500,000 in there. You could borrow with a signature on a page, and they vary from 3.5% to 5.5%. But I did this 2 years ago. I had an opportunity, did the same thing you did, borrowed out the money at 3.5%, put it into the investment, let that roll for a couple of years, let it pay the interest, and then paid off the investment when I changed the property.
Right.
And it was this traditional way to save money up until the 70s. And when the stock market did this really crazy run in the 70s when 401ks were born, people said, well, why am I having such a low return? The other side of it is tax-free, right? That money that you loan to yourself comes out, it's tax-free because it's a loan, you borrowed it. And here's the really cool part. We call this arbitrage. The money sitting in your account, your principal, you didn't take a distribution, you took a loan from Department 2. So your $500,000 is over here growing at, let's call it 7%. Yeah. So that grows at 7, you borrow at 3.5, that's a net. If my math is right, that's a net 3.5.
Right.
So you'd make an arbitrage. And you can then pay it back, use it again. And I love how you, the idea is it's a self-completing retirement plan also. Because if something happens to either one of us, we have this life insurance death benefit over here. And this company at Department 2 says, we see the death benefit. And so we know that we can call that collateral because if something happens to you, your death benefit will pay off your $500,000 loan.
That's right.
Beautiful, beautiful. One thing to know, not all life insurance agents are created equal. Not everybody builds it. And that's a really nice way to say it, but not everybody builds it as a cash value accumulation policy.
Yes, and that's hugely important. I'm really glad you said that because it's I think it's called The Pirates on Wall Street or something like that is the name of a book that specifically talks to this, right? So you really want to, it's kind of like not all real estate agents understand investment properties, even if they're all selling single families or duplexes. Not all real estate agents understand that there's an investment property and then there's a primary residence property.
Right.
Investment properties have certain qualifications to them that work for the investor. And what you need to know as a real estate agent is, well, what are the going rents in that area? What's the current appreciation rate in that area? Yeah, I do need to know a little bit about schools, but really what I need to know is, what am I going to be able to cover my mortgage, property tax and insurance? That's what an investor needs to know, right? So when you're building a life insurance plan as an investment vehicle, then you need a life insurance agent that is familiar with what does the arbitrage mean? What companies allow you to take loans? What policies can you actually take loans against? What will have the highest long-term value given your personal goals in relationship to that life insurance? Did I cover it well? I'm hopefully speaking what you're going to speak here, right?
And the piece I would add to that is when you have this, I just said you have $1 million policy and you have $500,000 saved up. $1 million policy will hold about $850,000.
Okay.
And then the IRS has this little rule that says your piggy bank's as big as it can get. And so now there's a relationship for those two numbers. But when you bought that policy, that $1 million policy, when you bought it before there was any money into it, I could have built it as a $300 death benefit, $1 million death benefit. I could have built it as $1.5 million death benefit. And the piece that wants to be known is the more life insurance you pay for, the more of your dollars that you put into it for the first 10 years are going to pay for the umbrella. So you said it, you want to know that that's its goal. For me, that's one of my first questions. Are we building this permanent policy because you want to have a life insurance death benefit until age 120? Or are you building this to stash money away from your proceeds of real estate or your proceeds from work or your proceeds from your business that you then want to access? Great example. I have a doctor, and that's one of the things we're working on is having he has a really great income, but he doesn't want to do it for 20 years. It's like, I'm going to do it a short period of time. So how much money can I put into it over the next 5 years? And so it's how small of a death benefit can we get? How much money can we stuff? And then there comes this point where it pays for itself. So now the growth of the policy is paying for the life insurance. I call that the break-even point. So the second question I'm always looking to answer is, how quickly can I get this to pay for itself for you? And it's a little nerdy, but that's what I would do for me. And so since I would do it for me,
that's what investors do. Those are the questions we ask. This is a vehicle that has a purpose. You're asking the question of what is its purpose, because I can build the vehicle based on your purpose. So let's get clear on your purpose. So yeah, I expect you to be nerdy. You're the one who's supposed to have that answer.
Thank you. It's like your husband. You know, it's your husband's $300,000.
Right.
It'll take 6 years, but we could systematically put that into a life insurance policy, and at year 6, he could get all $300,000 out of it if he wanted it.
The way he wants. Yep.
And then the question is my question for him would be like, how do you feel about having not all access for the 6 years? And so now it's a question of feeling into that, or, do we take 300,000 and go, what would we be divided by 6? Do we do 50,000 a year for 6 years, so that you've got the second year you've got 250 in cash, 50 in the policy, and then the next year you got 200 in cash and 100 in the policy, and the next year you got, as an example. So it's finding out what your goal is and how to match those pieces up. Here's something fun. It's a little jump.
By the way, that is a policy. That is almost the policy we have. I am putting in 50,000 more, 50,000. I'm giving him more, a little more than 50,000 a year into this policy. I'm so heavily loading it. That's the right. To me, that's a heavy load. I don't know.
That's the best way to do it. I call it max funding or super funding. I just want to. You could stretch it. We could do it 10,000 a year for the next 30 years.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I want to do 10
years.
That
money in. It's a great. That's what it was built for. That's also based on our vintage, our age, cost of life insurance. It sometimes needs more money as we're older. Right? When I'm building this for a 25-year-old, I don't need to put as much money because the life insurance umbrella doesn't cost as much as when a 65-year-old says, hey, I want to do the same thing. Well, that's cool. We just need more money to make sure the life insurance gets paid for. And I'm the first person to say, pause, this is not enough money to make this work. I know you want the goal. I know you want this big giant pile of money that's available tax-free. I know you want to be able to borrow, but based on your age and the cost of the umbrella, this amount of money, it's just, we're paying for a life insurance umbrella. And if that's not what the goal is, let's change gears and look at.
And you have a whole nother series of products that people can use. We haven't even touched on those yet. I'm just saying, because we're focusing on the investment value of life insurance, which I don't think everybody is familiar with, that the life insurance is an investment vehicle. So keep going. I interrupted you. You said you have a fun story to tell.
I think that was the fun story. The story was going back to the crashing and putting everything together and landing here.
Okay. All right, cool. So people have life insurance policies, they can use it, they can build it. And I think the important part is understanding that it's buildable, right? So you talk about front loading it, like mine is a 10-year pay, right? So, and I'm particularly happy because I actually have, and I know this is not my opportunity to brag, but I'm bragging anyways. I'm particularly happy because I have a life insurance policy on my daughter. So I got a life insurance policy on my daughter when she was
Brilliant.
7. Really, I think she was 6 or 7 when I started this whole process. And so I have a life insurance policy on my daughter because it is also another idiot policy. It's an idiot proof policy, right? It is a 10 pay upfront, not nearly as expensive as mine is. And it's going to be worth more than mine by the time she passes away,
Right.
because she's got 70 years or 80 years to compound it. And I was older, so I only have like 30 or 40, man, I'll call it 40 years to compound mine, right? Because I don't expect to die before 96. I'm just saying, I'm not going to die before I'm 96. It's just that simple.
It is that simple. As long as we speak
It
it,
is
right?
that simple.
Our words create our life.
Our words create a life. So I have every intention of living to 96. I have no need to live to 100, but hey, it's not in my, Grace might have a different plan for me. My plan is 96. So, but she's going to live a nice long life. So her policy is actually worth more at her, will be worth more.
I have a number if you'd like.
But the total amount, right, her policy will be worth more than my policy will be worth at my death. Now I've taken care of my daughter at my passing, and I've taken care of my grandchildren at her passing by putting money up front now while I have money and I'm making money as an investor.
It's a part of a diversified portfolio, right? When you and I save money, we can save money in stocks, we can save money in CDs, we can save money in cash, we can save money in real estate, we can save money in a life insurance policy. So all of them play the piece. When we do it for our kids, one of the amazing things is the umbrella cost does come down. It's very low. I call it $1 million baby. And here's the fun number, right? I'm a super conservative guy. I illustrate it 5.1%, even though our 20-year look back is 7.5%. And I'm speaking of the index. And I have some of my clients who are like, Andre, I don't want index. I want the whole life because it is a guaranteed interest rate. And so, cool. Let's do the whole life. Let's do that one. But $83 a month, which is $1,000 a year, into a kid's policy for 61 years, right? So $61,000 is $1 million of cash value in her policy. So imagine you and I as parents kickstarting our kids' retirement, right, to have their first $1 million. And of course, you know, there's somebody who's going to say $1 million, you need 10 million in 60 years. But so this is nice. It's your first $1 million. And here's what you can do with it. She's going to be able to use that policy for her first bike. She's going to be able to use it for her first car. She can use it for the year abroad while she figures out who she wants to be. If she goes to college, she can use it for college. If not, it's for her first business. It's for her first real estate investment. It's for her first house, or we let it ride and it becomes that long-term savings account. And all the meanwhile, she has access to borrow that money out or distribute that money out. I will always have the conversation with, let's use the loan provision, right? What's the axiom is buy, borrow, die.
Buy, borrow, die.
Buy, borrow, die.
Buy, borrow, die. Well, I love it. It never even occurred to me, because I just, you know, she's a kid, she's still 12, right? So of course, she has no idea this policy exists on her life. We just opened her a bank account.
Yeah.
But we also just opened her first stock trading account. So I figured that's enough financial education for 12.
That's
right?
beautiful. Yeah.
But it's active and it's intentional. The financial education is active and intentional because, like you said, so many children, so many of us grew up without an active and intentional financial education. So that being said, because of time, I need to change the topic. So tell me a story about how investing, because if you do this game long enough, something goes wrong and it makes you grow up. Investing is something that is a marathon. It's young, it's exciting, and it's vibrant, and it's cool, and it requires a lot of you. It is a marathon. It is a dedication. And sometimes it will come back and bite you on the backside, and you need to grow up in order to answer it. So what's one of your stories?
My first story was losing the business, stock market crash, not learning my money, right? That got the ball started. My second story would be before I found our company, I was all excited about being a day trader. And put some money in the stock market. I had these ideas of what these rules were going to be. And anytime my money would go below it, screw the rule, it's going to work. And I ended up turning my pile of money into about a 15th of my pile of money in just about a year.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, Andre, you did not honor what you said you would honor.
Yeah.
And that was before finding my company and establishing my business that I have today. So that again was for me bringing it back to my client. In this particular example, right, the cash value life insurance or permanent life insurance, every now and then I get a client who says, I want to do this much money. And I'm like, okay, can you really do that much money? And have you done it in the past? And are you comfortable doing that in the past? And one time I let a client tell me, I'm going to do this. I want to do 25,000 a year, and I get this bonus at the end of the year from my work, and I'm going to do another 30,000 a year. So we built the life insurance umbrella to hold $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then she said, I want to start it with 500 a month. And I was like, 500 a month, 60,000, that's a big number.
It's a big difference.
She did start off with a $15,000 deposit. And then when we got to the end of the year, when it was bonus time, I was like, and of course I'm doing the annual review. Hey, $30,000 bonus, right? This policy is looking for this money.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I decided to pay off credit card debt with that instead.
Whoa, wait a minute. That's not.
And I'm like, hold on. We had this plan. We built this based on your things. And what ended up happening is that now the policy was the opposite. It was underfunded. We're paying for life insurance, right, and very little money was going into the growth part of the account. So the money that growing wasn't going to be there. We weren't going to hit the 7-year or the 8-year mark to get it to break even. Mm-hmm. And then when we got to year 2, I was like, we really need to start doing this. And so what happened was, what I learned was, don't always trust my client with what they tell me they're going to do until they do it.
Right. No, there's a feeling that out, helping them get their highest good, even if they don't fully understand.
And so what that did for me was, oh, now let's take a whole meeting where I show you how this doesn't work. Right. And so now all of my clients leave the table with me, seeing why it doesn't work. And so now instead of me being the only one that has the responsibility, I've shared the responsibility with my client. And so now it's like, oh, hey, cool. I know you said you were going to do it and you didn't. You made a different choice. High five. Let's go get a latte. And because it's self-reflection, right? We made the decision together. The other thing that I've learned too is, and there is a way to bring that life insurance death benefit back down. And we had to do that for 3 years and we got it working. Okay. But there's also a piece of, let's build this based on what you're really going to do. And then if we need to extend it and build it and make it bigger later, we can. Right. And so since then, it's been implementing that piece and really being purposeful with asking the client what they're doing and not taking on all the responsibility, right? That's probably the biggest lesson for me right there was, this is yours. I'm here to educate you and teach you how it works. And so I realized there's a couple things more that I want you to know, and I'll lay it out. And so they understand it. And then I'll actually say, I want you to go home and sleep on it, come back in a week and ask me questions. And then I want you to go home for a week and come back and ask me questions again, so that we get all those questions out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's important, like what I take away from what you just said for people who are listening is, you can start an insurance policy your whole life, right? Or an indexed or whatever it is that is right vehicle for them based on an investment vehicle. And you can increase it. Right? You can start something reasonable. It's a little like, oh, but I don't have enough money to do a life insurance policy, or I don't know that, and there are all kinds of reasons why people are like, I don't know about this. But if you start creating the vehicle, you start seeing the vehicle working, you start understanding the vehicle, you get educated, which is what you're very good at, is educating both the positive and the responsibility. One might call it the negative, but the responsibilities of having made that choice. You can make a choice that is totally within reach, and say, hey, I did grow. My investments did grow. I can also grow this vehicle next to me, right? I don't have to stop with just this piece. So I just really was like, it's like people don't get used to savings, but they start savings and then all of a sudden they're excited because their savings account is growing, and they don't buy their first piece of real estate because it seems like a big deal. But once they own their first piece of real estate, it's like, oh, well, wait a minute, I can't do this, right? And it's like, It's like life insurance is just another investment vehicle. Now, here's the thing. We haven't even talked about annuities yet. So you're going to have to talk about annuities at the Phoebe Pasadena meeting, because we don't even have time to touch on it right here. So all we've done is life insurance, and there's a whole other set of vehicles, which are just as craftable, which is the annuity line, which might actually be better, because that's how you and I met, was we were trying to help my client, who is also your client, understand what was the right vehicle for them to choose, and then how to customize that vehicle. So
may I give you 4 sentences as a teaser?
Mhm.
What if all these great things we just talked about with the life insurance, what if we could take the life insurance umbrella off, right? Now that does remove the tax-free piece, and that's okay as long as we know what we're doing with it.
Mhm.
The second thing is what if you could have an account that had the protection of a bond, so the guarantee, and of course the rest of the world would fall apart before the bonds would, but what if you could have the protection of the guarantee of a bond, and then you could get some of the growth of the stock market? When annuities were first born, their purpose was you put a pile of money in and you turn on an income, and the company, the dude with the short tie who worked at the top of the ivory tower, said, we know we can pay you this much if you give us this, and we'll pay it to you for life. Since then, just like the Model T Ford has turned into a Tesla, right?
Yeah.
Today's annuity, and there are 3 main kinds, but you can have the protection of the bond. They married it with the partial growth of the stock market, not all of it, but you can participate in some of the upside. And then you can have some liquidity and some access to that money. And so what happens is depending on what the goal is, now it's not short term because we're in a fixed or an index, we're trading the management fee for a time horizon. Like, hey, let us sit on that for 10 years. You can still get 10% a year. So that's beautiful, because that client that we were talking about, it made more sense because of the period of time to remove the life insurance umbrella,
Right.
save the money on life insurance, and let that money go into the account and grow.
Right.
And there's a piece here that, would you like an income payment, like a pension payment?
Yeah.
And
Like to
that's
create
one
your
of
own
the pieces
pension
that it
payment.
does.
I mean, just like, how does it serve you? You're creating your own pension payment. That's how it served the client we were looking at, that it created a pension payment, and the tax piece wasn't as important in that case.
Correct. And
Okay,
one last
so-
piece,
Yes.
piece about life insurance,
Yes.
just a thought.
Go ahead.
If you can pull money out of this account, like you got $1 million, $2 million, $5 million in your cash value life insurance policy, and you're pulling that money out tax-free. If your tax bracket's 25%, and you're pulling that money out tax-free, aren't I saving you 25% a year? And if I'm saving you 25% a year, aren't I making you 25% a year? Isn't that the same?
Right.
So other than real estate, where else can you go and comfortably get 25% a year return?
Yes. Because of a shelter, because of an in-place government sanctioned shelter, which does not seem to be at play. I see nothing on the Republican or Democratic side. This is not a political conversation. This is a financial conversation, but I see nothing on either side of our current governmental propensities, let's call it that has any interest in removing the tax-free benefit of these insurance policies.
That's because that's what they all have. They all use this.
They all use them, so they don't have any interest in removing them. And whereas they're looking at the 1031 exchange, right? Like right now, they're looking at the 1031 exchange. So that's at risk. All right. So final question has to be asked. What does financial freedom mean to you? Because that is why we are investors, and that's why we are professionals in the investment field. What does financial freedom mean to you? Why do it?
In the old days, retirement or financial freedom usually meant work a job 30, 40, 50 years, retire, sit on the porch until you die, right? And
Yes.
because you hopefully had enough money, or Social Security would
that
pay
you can sit on the porch until you die. That's right.
Until you die, right? 3 years, right? The average person lived 3 years. Today, in my world, one, because of our health, the way we take care of ourselves, our health system, is that financial freedom to me, and the invitation that I ask people is, how much money do you need to have in an account to pay all of your bills so that you can go and chase your passion? And when we have that amount of money, and sometimes it's a job, sometimes it's work, sometimes it's passive income, but that financial freedom piece is having enough money somewhere, or enough money provided to you through passive income, that you can get up every day, go click on the alarm and roll back over. because you don't have to get up. And each of us has a different number. Like, I really enjoy having a year and a half of all of my bills, all of my expenses. Like, I don't even have to worry. And so every time I go do anything, it's for 18 months from now.
Okay.
That for me feels really good for financial freedom.
Okay. My daughter would agree with the rolling back over on the alarm at 12. She's like, do I have to wake up for school? And I'm like, yeah, you got to wake up for school.
I'm still trying to make up for all of those years I had to be at school at 7:30 or 8:02 or whatever it was.
Exactly. I know. 8:02. Need to be at school at 8:17 a.m. Whatever.
Yeah.
Andre, thank you so very much. I so appreciate your expertise, your time, and your thoughtfulness. I really appreciate that you have taken the time to create yourself as an expert in this field so investors can trust you and come to you and say, craft me the vehicle I need. And I appreciate the being that you are, because they can trust you to craft a vehicle that serves them, that you can see their needs and not your own story in the way. So thank you for that. This is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and iTunes. You can also find us on Roku TV and YouTube at ChristinaSuter.com.